Welcome to In the Spotlight. I'm Eric Townell. My guest today is David Palmer, Artistic Director of the Rochester City Ballet. Welcome, David. Thank you so much for coming in. Great
Thank
to have
you very much.
here.
Very nice to meet you, Eric.
It's a wonderful thing that you're with us in Rochester now and doing such exciting projects with the ballet.
Oh, thank you. I
It's
appreciate
just
that.
been fantastic. And so ballet terms itself as a contemporary ballet company on the website. And I was wondering if you could talk a little about that, and as opposed to classical ballet, for instance.
Well, I think that has been kind of the moniker that the company has existed through. Oh, yeah. It certainly hasn't been in totality the raison d'etre, because of course one of the big things for the organization has always been the Nutcracker, which I wouldn't consider a contemporary ballet in really any way. It certainly lends itself more to the classical vernacular and form. But what I see us moving forward is certainly a continuation of striking out and doing and bold new things with ballet. It certainly speaks to the current size of the organization, the amount of dancers we have. It's very hard to put on those really big 19th century classical works. But I can also see that in our future there will be some of that. Just when, I can't commit to at this moment, but certainly I'm looking at integrating some of that back into the company's repertoire in the future as big one-off kind of projects. But I think where we fit very well is in that niche of, really it's kind of a boutique company in a sense. So my vision for the company moving forward is really that we are a window to the world of dance. So a lot of the latest and greatest things that are happening outside, I'd like to bring right here in through that window. And at the same point in time, continue to create innovative and new works and new things with the form of ballet that both nationally and internationally other organizations can look through our window and take it there. And that's certainly the metaphor I like to use. A window works two ways.
Well, that's beautiful. And so now it's great that you could produce things in Rochester and in the region that are transportable elsewhere, and you carry the art form from here outward.
Well, I think that's an important thing to note. Once upon a time in the U.S. specifically, companies that were in New York were ballet companies in New York or dance companies in New York, and everything else was regional. And once upon a time, at New York City, I mean, we're in New York, but upper
New York City.
But in Manhattan, more specifically now, of course, in Manhattan it's spread out to Brooklyn and the Bronx and all over. But on a larger scale, I think you see more and more so much interesting work turning up in every corner of the United States. And certainly that's something we want to continue to do here. It's certainly something I've been involved with in companies like San Francisco Ballet and Miami City Ballet, my own company Maximum Dance in Miami. And I feel that that's an important energy that in a sense continues to keep the art form moving forward. Right.
Now, does that involve bringing international artists here as part of your mission, or?
Certainly, certainly. And from the wonderful thing, maybe you don't know, it's a phrase I got to cut out of my my Australianism. But there is a wonderful wealth in the United States of artists from all departments or designers, both lighting designers, costume designers, composers, in all those things. But there's also some very interesting things that are happening on the other side of the pond, or in South America. And sometimes it's very nice to get a different aspect or a different point of view on the same thing.
I see.
And I think through that also, as artists, kind of in a global sense, it's something that it's non-political, but it is still, as artists, we have this kind of responsibility to comment on what's going on around us and bring other points of view. So certainly in this particular season, the 16-17 season, where on our first program we're bringing in Assail, who was the resident choreographer of the Royal Ballet of Flanders. choreographers for close to 2 decades.
Belgium.
From Belgium, from Antwerp, Belgium, more specifically, and a very highly regarded choreographer from the Low Countries, as we call them, Les Pays-Bas, which has been a tremendous force in what you're referring to earlier, contemporary ballet. Certainly, that includes Het National, the Royal Ballet Flanders, Netherlands Dance Theatre, Scarpino, and other companies and great choreographers. So there's a lot of energy from that area, and I know that for my dancers, they will benefit tremendously from that experience.
And so is he a choreographer then?
Yes, he's a choreographer.
I see. So it doesn't mean bringing a principal dancer necessarily, or is that part of the...
No, not on this particular occasion, but also in this same season, later in the year, we will be doing a work, there's a full evening work to Pink Floyd. Well, actually, it's the music of Pink Floyd and arrangements of Pink Floyd from the London Symphony Orchestra, as sort of not a medley, but a collage of things that I felt with my co-choreographer, or creator, that we felt really went together in a wonderful way. And we're using the scenic designs and costume designs of Chilean-based designer Jorge Gallardo. So, it's wonderful. Again, the great thing about dance is it is multimedia, from beginning to end, and it is a collaboration of different artists, and from a director-producer to the choreographer, who really is a big part of that and overseeing everything and making the creation happen, to these other important people that can input information that informs and creates a larger work.
And how about the narrative? Is there a script to dance, and how does that develop in your artwork?
Well, the narrative, we have been dancing as a people, not as a race, but as people at large. We've been dancing since before the time we could talk and converse. 60,000 years ago, one tribe would meet another tribe, and instead of killing one another, they would dance for each other what they were doing. So we were telling stories through dance since the time that we would put 2 sticks together and make a beat, since before the time that we could understand each other's language. So in saying that, there is an inherent universal language that is within dance, and the ability to do the narrative. It's in our DNA, whether we realize it or not. And also, for me, that's one of the magical parts of dance, when we do the narratives, because of course you have the 180 degree from the narrative, you have the abstract, and certainly we work in both those worlds. But in the narrative, it's a wonderful thing to be able to take the same piece that we might do here in Rochester to Japan, to an audience that has nothing to do with our language. But the two groups understand exactly the same thing.
Because they visually it communicates.
The story, we know what the movements mean.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. So, you know, choreography means writing down dance. And is there a way for you to write on paper what a dancer is supposed to do?
There are several ways. Fortunately, today we have this amazing technology which has just gotten better and better, which is video. So largely in the United States, we work a lot with video. We haven't had in the U.S. this as longer-term relationship with choreology. The writing down we actually call choreology.
I see.
So there's lab notation, there's Benesh, there's other ways and methods that have been developed mostly in the 20th century, and it really takes someone who's very much a specialist to kind of work. One of the really wonderful ways is Benesh, which is written on the stave. So you have the steps along with the music at the simultaneous. But it's something that you really have to study, and something you need to be kind of expert at. But also for a lot of us today, we have these wonderful cameras that can really help us document.
I think dancers are very adept at picking up movement through their body and seeing something and imitating it in themselves. Is that still the technique?
Absolutely, and certainly there's generational hand-me-down. You know, there's many things. the reality is a lot of the great repertoire works that are the classical canon, whether it's Giselle or Swan Lake or Bayadère, Don Quixote. There's certainly been many adaptations since the 1890s,
Yes.
And earlier. However, at the same point in time, generationally, there have been, and this was in a sense prior to some of the notation forms I was talking about earlier,
yes,
but still some handwritten things down, some things on scores, but also this kind of generation to generation hand-me-down and passing on of the knowledge.
People who danced with Balanchine, for instance. And
Certainly, and before that, and the reality is, in our world, if you really go back, I'm certainly, in a sense, a nephew or a kind of child of Cranko, through the reality of working under that next generation.
I see.
But you can take Balanchine, you can take Cranko, you can take Killian, and they all go back to the same place.
That fundamental communication of the body.
Right. Well, not only the same person.
The same person.
Balanchine was in Ballet Russe at the same time as Dame Ninette de Valois. The other two that I talked about came from Dame Ninette directly.
I see.
So, and Jerome Robbins also indirectly came from Dame Ninette de Valois. So everything kind of comes back to this nexus point.
I don't think people realize that. Yeah.
Well, it's one of the, I love the history of my art form, and it's one of the interesting things that you can find in so many different things. I think people are a lot more involved in their own ancestry today.
Yes, I agree.
And there's certainly, you can find yourself with a new neighbor that you don't know that 300 years ago that your great parents were also neighbors, or on the same boat coming to the country.
Exactly.
So it is an interesting world. You know.
That's fantastic. Now, with a more flexible approach to your art form, is it possible to take dance to venues where you haven't presented it traditionally, maybe not in the theater, but where people are likely to encounter you?
Certainly. That's one of the explicit things that I'm looking to do in the growth and expansion of Rochester City Ballet. I really want us to be able to get out in the community. To me, there are thousands more ballet lovers, balletomanes out there. They are the people who haven't seen us yet. And so it's imperative and important for us to get out there and be able to bring our art form, which we believe in very, very much, and we believe that you will enjoy very, very much, to the mountain, as a sense.
That's great.
So in that we're looking to, right now we're writing grants and looking to secure funding for portable staging and potentially a truck so that we can travel and get out there and service our community. At the end of the day, we are part of the community.
Yes.
And one of the important things for this community to have is a great ballet company. And so that's what we want to be, and that's what we're working towards. And certainly, if we're going to put all that effort in, we want to make sure that it also gets out to you.
Yes. Now, you mentioned the staging. Dancers need a special floor.
That's true.
Because they jump and there's impact involved and for their own health. And do you have facilities in Rochester that permit that? Where do you rehearse and that sort of thing?
Well, our studios, of course, are on floors designed for dance. Both the subfloor, which has a slight amount of spring to it, not too much, it can't be too much.
I see.
But at the same point in time, our dancers don't dance in Nikes or athletic shoes. You know, it's basically a reinforced sock, in a sense. And on average, a male dancer might do somewhere between 750 to 1,000 jumps per week. In just the process of the week. So there's certainly impact, and so we want to mitigate that with a certain amount of suspension, which typically is around about 12 millimeters of give and movement. And we also work on an overlay or a linoleum, which gives a consistent traction.
Yes.
Which of course is also important.
Now, that involves a lot of physical conditioning for your dancers.
Well, certainly, it's part of it.
So these are professionals, they do it round the clock, this is their job, to dance.
Around the clock might be a bit much, 24/7, although I'm sure some of them on a Friday or Saturday night still find energy to get out there and enjoy the local nightlife. But certainly, it's a daily a daily process. Every day we have a class which is both training and warm-up. Some days it might be a bit more necessarily the warm-up more important, but consistently you're not going to maintain if you're not striving to improve.
Yes.
And so it's from the beginning of becoming a professional dancer till the last performance, you're always striving to be better and better than the person you were the day before or the week before.
I think people are very inspired by the story of Misty Copeland, for instance, who came from, a disadvantaged background, let's say, and became a principal dancer. Is there a vehicle or is there a path for a young artist to follow here in Rochester with your company?
We're looking and hoping that as we talked about, the traveling stage.
Yes.
Right now we're working on, through some collaborations, to potentially do some pilot programs with Rochester City Public Schools in the coming year. And what we really want to do with that is understand a lot better what the desires, dreams, where we can fit in, where we can enable, where we can help, where we can engage in an effectual way. There are tremendous things that a young person can get out of dance training. Number one, the terminology that we use is in French, so right away you're being forced to understand and think in a different language, which also then reinforces the language we work in English.
Yes.
Because again, you talk about dégager, which means to extricate or to take out. To take out is simple, but to learn the word extricate is also something that is instantly right there. There is something positive. And also we work with music, which is meter. And certainly as dancers, we don't always count it the same way it was written or conducted, but we're certainly working in phrases of 6 and 8 and 12, and so the mathematics is naturally there. It's being a choreographer is a mathematical equation. Doing those patterns and forms it's all math. And then of course, again, there's the creative aspects of starting with a blank sheet and in a sense, as you mentioned earlier, writing choreography is writing down. Well, it's even a little bit more than writing down, because as we say, a picture is 1,000 words. Well, moving pictures again, it's a lot of information.
Yeah. So if you're a youngster or if you have youngsters, how do they become connected with your education program?
Well, that we're still working on over the years. This year, Rochester City Ballet will be doing some workshops in our studios that are open to all of the schools, both public and private.
In the Draper Center, for instance?
In the Draper Center. Of course, we've had a long time affiliation with the Draper Center.
I see.
And so and the Draper Center is still our official school.
I see.
But certainly we are looking at, as also a separate entity, Rochester City Ballet. We want to be kind of a steward for dance and for ballet at large, and we certainly are looking to create programs in the future that expand that accessibility.
I see. So you mentioned Pink Floyd, and I know I saw a production of David Bowie music. What is it about the contemporary music that inspires you particularly? Does it resonate with your own background, for instance?
Well, certainly, for sure. But a fun little story is when I was still living in Australia, and I just gotten back on tour with the Australian Ballet on a trip through China and Japan. And while I was in Japan, I bought one of those early micro-compact stereo systems, and I was back visiting my parents in my parents' house in Sydney. I was maybe 20, 21. And on a Sunday morning, I was blasting the Beatles in my room, and my father knocked on the door, and I thought he was going to say, turn that music down or something. And he said, Beatles, eh? And I said, yeah, Dad, they're great. It's great. He said, yeah, your mother and I, we saw him in '64 live. And of course, at which point in time, he became God to me, at least temporarily. But the reality is, my father in his late 70s today, and my mother saw the Beatles live. And so in today's world, if you're in your 80s or even early 90s, Chuck Berry and Elvis and all of those guys were your heroes, and if you're in your 70s or 60s, it's the Beatles, and so on and so forth, coming down to today. And even today, now my son, who's in his 20s, of course, to him, again, the Beatles are God, again. So I think in today's world, the reality is most of us living today didn't grow up in Richard Wagner's world. And although that is amazing music, and we can all appreciate Mozart and Beethoven and all these things, when we talk about comfort food, when we talk about what makes our hips move and what puts a smile on our face, and it's music that has meaning, direct meaning to our youth and different periods of time in our life.
Yes.
Which I think certainly all of this music does.
Well, I enjoyed especially the visual aspects of it. So what can people expect when they come to a ballet performance for the first time? And what are they going to experience with their eyes and you mentioned their own bodies, for instance?
Well, I think certainly the obvious part of it is the amazing movement, athleticism, even at times slightly gymnastic quality, beyond that finesse that the creatures, the dancers that are performing on stage possess. Then secondly, it's again, when I talked earlier about it's in our own DNA. So whilst we might not picture ourselves recreating exactly that movement, there's, I believe, a visceral and tactile sense as an audience that you can feel that movement in your own body, in a sense. So whether you realize it or not. So I think one of the things I always feel comes out of viewing dance is kind of this sense of revitalization. You know, you go away, you see for a kind of 2-hour spa treatment, in a sense, without the massage, without the other things, but I think that there is a natural kind of endorphin kind of process that scientifically I don't know, but I just like the smiles that I see at the end of a dance performance.
Well, certainly in the dead of winter, it's good to be invigorated like that.
Absolutely.
And do you perform at Nazareth College, where I saw you, or what other places do you perform around?
We perform at Nazareth College. We perform at the Eastman, at the Kodak at the Eastman Center at Eastman Hall, and we perform at the Auditorium this season.
Oh, the Auditorium Theatre in Rochester.
Yes.
I see. And do you have different offerings that fit those venues, or?
Yes, we do this year. We're doing a program in the fall, which is called Slightly Skillful, which is a repertory program. So it's 3 different works.
And they're likely to see that several years in a row if it's repertory.
Or in some shape or form, things may come back. Repertory, I mean, it's more than one piece. It's not a full evening narrative, but it's a selection of pieces all around the title, Slightly Skillful, and it's slightly simple. The Nutcracker with the RPO.
I see.
And then, as you mentioned, we're doing Spectrum, which is a full evening work to Pink Floyd at the Auditorium in April, and then in February we're actually back at I skipped one. In February we're back at Nazareth College to perform a children's program, which is Green Eggs and Ham with a side of bacon.
I see. So in a typical season you'll have something for children like that, a Green Eggs and Ham, and then something with the Philharmonic, for instance. That's been a very exciting collaboration.
Yes, it certainly has, and it's been going on for, I think, this now becomes the 20th season, I believe.
Oh my.
Yes, certainly. It has been part of the raison d'etre for the organization for a long time to do some work specifically for children. Well, and it's not just children, it's children and their families, because children often come plus one, fortunately. And certainly this year's project is a fun one for me. I did a work to Green Eggs and Ham, which is not a long work, but I found an operatic version that was saying the narration of the book, the entire book. And then it was actually my wife's idea, but I then created all the choreography in ASL. So as
American Sign Language.
American Sign Language. So as a fully hearing child gets the narration from the operatic version, a hearing impaired child has the same narration through the movement. And
the additional communication of being able to sense the movement in their own bodies.
Absolutely.
That's phenomenal.
Exactly.
So it's a mixture of art forms, again, a narrative form and a sign language, a different language entirely.
Absolutely, and that's a lot of fun for me. I really enjoy collaborating, and everything from visual art to all of the performing arts. I think that we have a lot to offer one another.
So do you perform with live music or recorded music? For instance, Pink Floyd's recording, no doubt, or?
For sure. And certainly sometimes by choice we perform with recorded music.
Yes.
Certainly for the Bowie, that was a choice.
Yes.
And at different points in time, by choice, we perform with live music. Certainly with Nutcracker with the RPO, and sometimes there's just the reality of, due to a venue or due to budget at different points in time, where and certainly what I'm talking about in the future of us moving out around the community with a portable stage, that may preclude us being able to perform with live music. But when we can, we certainly try to do that.
Dance had a history of being part of other productions, for instance, opera or theatrical productions. Is that still the case, and is that something that your company would do, or?
Well, certainly. You know, I think that there's in a way, a lot of what we call new today is really like so much of history returning back to a cycle. And the reality of ballet as we know it today, as its separate kind of art form, really didn't come to that point until the 1780s by a French choreographer, Novet. And I might be historically slightly incorrect, but I know I'm very close. If it wasn't the guy, he was next to the first person. But it was really around that time in the late 18th century in France that ballet became a standalone art form.
I see.
Prior to that, it was always part of a multimedia collaborative spectacle, full with opera, with the recreation of battles, with just so many things. Pageantry, exactly. So today, to kind of come back, and in the past few years, I've done several collaborations with opera companies, and done sort of very much either opera ballets, ballet operas, however you want to put it, really mingling and putting the two together. Certainly they've been a lot of fun for me, I think a lot of fun for the audiences. And also, right now I have a run of The Little Mermaid happening in the Washington, D.C. area, which is a collaboration from my former company, the Washington Ballet, and Imagination Stage.
I see.
And so, and that is a dancicle.
A dancicle.
So it's really collaborating the narrative where fully 50-50 the actors and the dancers are pushing the thread of the story from beginning to end.
Fantastic.
And really wonderful kind of way of bringing things together.
Fantastic. So are you looking for dancers, and how do they find you?
Right now the company is full, but certainly I'm constantly looking for dancers for the future of the organization. I think over a period of time during the next years, certainly I'm a new director coming in, and there were reasons why the structure of the company was the way it was, under my predecessor Jamie Leverett, and before her Tim Draper, and certainly now as I look to expand and do other things, it may mean that the makeup of the company changes slightly. In that there are specifics of certain types of dances that I'm looking for to round out our company and really to be able to tackle the repertoire that we
all
want
look forward to that too. Thank you so much for coming into the spotlight with us today. My guest has been David Palmer, Artistic Director of the Rochester City Ballet. Thank you so much. Thanks, David.
Thank you again, Eric.